Across open fields, mountain passes, and dense forests, travel can be a big part of D&D. As your players traverse the various paths and roads across the world, you could just skip ahead to where they're going, but sometimes it's nice to make the journey part of the adventure too. To that end, here are 6 fun and intriguing roadside encounters that you can throw in your party's path. Without further ado, let's get started. As they set out on the road, your players will come across maybe the most classic of roadside encounters, a broken down cart with a smashed wheel headed the other direction. The wagon is loaded up with vegetables, and the farmers will be grateful for any help your players can provide. A simple survival check or a mending spell will probably get the job done. But if your players look just a little closer, they may notice some strange things about these farmers. First is that they appear well armed. It's not uncommon for travelers to bring some kind of weapon for protection, but the swords that they carry look way nicer than a peasant's arms. Second, the vegetables in their cart don't look particularly fresh, which is strange if they're taking them to be sold at market. Third, the farmers will get really touchy if your players try and mess with their product at all. Sure, nobody wants their vegetables stolen, but something isn't really adding up here. If your players check out the cart without the farmers noticing, they'll realize that this wagon isn't just carrying produce. Hidden beneath the crates and boxes is some sort of illegal items. Drugs, dangerous magic weapons, symbols of outlawed deities. You can choose exactly what they're smuggling, but once your players find out, it'll be up to them how they want to proceed. Maybe they decide to take them in, subduing the criminals and bringing them into the next town for justice. Or maybe they're fine letting them walk, but only for a piece of whatever they're carrying. However your party decides to resolve things, at least it'll make them look a little bit closer at every cart that they pass from now on. After a long day on the road, most parties will take a breather, get a campfire going, and settle into some downtime activities. But on this particular night, those in your party with higher passive perception may notice that they aren't alone. Someone or something small is watching them from behind a tree or patch of tall grass, eyeing their camp. If they attempt to approach, the figure will run off, only to return later in the night. They can see that it appears to be a goblin, and as it moves, they can just make out the sounds of jingling metal. If your party manages to catch the creature or entice it to come out of hiding, they'll see this little goblin is wearing a vest covered in tiny knickknacks and shiny bits. He seems to be a collector of some sort. In Broken Common, the goblin will introduce itself as Trinket, and he goes around grabbing any odd baubles and items that catch his fancy, especially shiny ones. You can decide why it was attracted to the party's camp. Maybe one of them has a really nice shiny flask that he saw, or perhaps they have jewelry on that Trinket is interested in. Regardless of his reasons for sneaking, once caught or confronted, Trinket will start to try to trade with your players for some of their goods. Most of Trinket's stuff is junk. Twisted spoons, broken armor bits, ball bearings. But you could throw in a common magic item or two that eagle-eyed characters could spot amid the trash. Trinket's not that interested in gold, though platinum would certainly catch his eye. And of course, your players might have all kinds of shiny stuff that they could trade with him. They could also just kill Trinket and take all his stuff, so really play up to this little guy as a threat. Try to make him as cute as you can. Unless they don't spot him at all, of course, then they may just wake up the next day missing some of their possessions, and then you'll have a full-blown chase on your hands. This next encounter works best for mountain travel, but you can adapt it for other locales too. As they're moving along a tall cliff face, perhaps with a pretty sheer drop to their other side, have whoever's keeping watch make a perception check. On a success, your player will notice that up on the cliff face, dozens of feet up, there appear to be 2 shapes crouching atop a ledge. Though they look like the stone around them, your player can just make out humanoid forms, though much larger than a dwarf or elf. If they fail their perception check, well, they won't be ready for what happens next. As soon as your players are near, 2 stone giants will leap up from their hiding spot and start hurling rocks down on the party. If your players are traveling elsewhere, this could be a tall hill or old ruin, with the type of giants changing to match the environment. Caught under the raining rocks, your party will have to choose between trying to run and standing their ground. And how they get up to the giants, I'll leave to them. But regardless, it's unlikely to be an experience that they'll forget anytime soon. Not everyone the party meets along the road will be trying to kill them, of course. As the sun starts to set on a day of travel, your party will find a small camp set up on the edge of the path. A group of bards have decided to stop here for the evening, and the jovial performers will invite your party to join them. If your party accepts, they'll be treated to fun and games by their new friends. There's plenty of ale and wine to go around, and these bards are avid gamblers, inviting your players to bet on dice and card games. Music will of course be played, and this could be a great time to incorporate some lore or foreshadowing by describing the songs that they're playing. Beyond that, the bards can be a valuable resource for your players too. They could tell them about the city they're trying to reach, or give hints for quests that they've been pursuing. No matter how helpful the bards are, it's guaranteed to be a fun night for the party. Just don't forget to make them roll con saves against hangovers in the morning. It's not uncommon to see merchants traveling the roadways, but for this encounter, your players will come across a few who stand out against the rest. They'll see a covered wagon approaching as they travel down the road, but out front there's no horses or mules. The entire thing appears to be moving on its own. As it gets closer, they'll notice writing scrawled on the side of the cart, Higgle and Mort's tonics and brews. And sure enough, the side of the wagon will pop open, revealing two figures inside. Higgle is a loud and somewhat sloppy halfling, while Mort is a reserved and well-dressed half-orc. The interior of the wagon is lined with all sorts of potions for your party to marvel at. The question is, do they all actually work? The two salesmen will hawk a bunch of different potions at your players, each producing varied and wondrous effects. It'll be up to you to decide which actually work and which don't. Your players might be able to tell with a good enough arcana or perception check, and of course insight could reveal that perhaps these two are a bit scummy. But with a discerning eye and some good haggling, they could potentially get some really useful brews for their adventures. Or just get scammed. That's always a possibility too. Your players could find all sorts of cool things built on the side of the road, but this one in particular is a bit more important than the odd shack or signpost. The party will pass by two large obelisks, one on each side of the road. While they both look really old, the one on the left is still standing, while the tower on the right has collapsed into 4 pieces. Inspecting closer, they'll see that the monument contains symbols related to one of the deities in your setting. More on that later. If your players decide to reassemble the obelisk, it will not be an easy feat. It is a DC 20 athletics check to lift just one of the pieces, let alone get it up to the top of the spire. The obelisk at full height stands 15 feet tall, so they'll need to figure out a way to get the top part on there. But once they do, they'll be rewarded for it. The symbols on both obelisks will begin glowing, and the player or players who complete its assembly will be granted some gift by the god who watches over them. If the obelisk is dedicated to a deity of time and destiny, they can see glimpses of the future, events you're planning for later on. If it's a god of power or swiftness, maybe a boost to their strength or dexterity saves. You can flavor it to be any sort of boon that you like, but your party can move forward with a little bit better luck, and a potential connection to a god that you can pull on later. Those are 6 fun roadside encounters that you can use in your own games, but the limits are truly your imagination. Thank you so much for watching, and if you have some favorite travel challenges that you've used with your party, I'd love to hear about them in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, I always appreciate it if you'd leave a like and consider subscribing to the Bard's College. I make videos about DMing and D&D, so if you enjoyed this one, there's more to see. But for now, good luck, and remember, crit your players.